Welcome back to another video podcast here on the Washington Football Maniacs YouTube channel. My name is Greg along with Brandon Scott. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about pro days and also some rumors about that number 2 pick. So who's it going to be? Folks, this podcast is dedicated to the Washington Commanders news and commentary and whatever else we decide we want to do on here. So if that sounds good to you and you want to support us, please consider supporting us by subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell also when you subscribe so you won't miss any other video releases. We also have channel memberships if you want to check that out. I believe I have them around $2.99, but don't quote me on that because it's been a while since I've seen those. But if you become a channel member, we promise to put out some exclusive content just for you guys, so you want to check that out as well. Look in the description and go visit our partners here, Mint Mobile, if you want to save a lot of money on your wireless. So with all that said, Brandon, let's get into this video. So we touched on Jaden Daniels' pro day. We've touched on Drake May's pro day. I did get a chance to watch J.J. McCarthy's pro day about a week and some change ago. I was pretty impressed. I didn't really see anything horrible that stood out. I know you're going to touch a little bit more on what you saw. You also you were able to watch Penix's pro day, and so let's talk about J.J. McCarthy. What are some positives and negatives that you got from his pro day?
A lot of positives, very few negatives, in my opinion. He is I'll say this, the perfect system quarterback. I mean, the highlight of his pro day to me was his footwork, immaculate footwork. I mean, and it shows that, he was under a pro style system at Michigan, underneath, Harbaugh, who is now the current coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. And it shows, man, he's definitely an NFL ready quarterback, in my opinion, because his footwork is just immaculate, man. Footwork is something that, is very pivotal in the quarterback. And not every quarterback really gets down to the footwork, but with him, you see it. I said system quarterback. He showed that he could throw the deep ball, but to me, he's more of a West Coast guy, a guy who's going to hit, tight ends, slant routes. He's more of a system guy, which is fine. But J.J. McCarthy, to me, and it's not because we talked about Drake May, we talked about Jaden Daniels, and we're going to talk about Michael Penix Jr. But to me, I think he's probably the most pro-ready quarterback in the draft. Now, talent-wise, is he the most talented? No, obviously, if you look at the talent, Jaden Daniels, dual threat, Drake May, a lot of people sleep on his athleticism, which he can run the ball also. He's not going to blaze like Jaden Daniels, but he's definitely going to earn those extra yards. But he, in my opinion, he's the most pro-ready one because, like I said, under a pro system in Michigan, his footwork, is just on point. And you just see the mechanics with him is that he's going to be able to come into a pro style offense and be a West Coast guy and be very successful. He reminds me a lot of Brock Purdy, which if you look at Brock Purdy, all footwork, the perfect guy for the system. He knows the right throws, he knows the right places to put the ball. And if you look at San Francisco, he lets the talent work for itself. He relies on his weapons on the outside. He relies on his run game, which is not too hard when you got Christian McCaffrey as a running back. So he reminds me of Brock Purdy, the perfect system guy. So I was very impressed with J.J. McCarthy, man, because like I said, I'm very high on him. Like I said, Jaden Daniels, a lot of athleticism. Definitely, we're going to talk about him at 2, but it seems to be all arrows are pointing towards him at number 2, and I think it should. Drake May, things to work on. Definitely needs a city year, but I think he definitely is going to blossom into a starter quarterback in the NFL. I have no doubt about that. J.J. McCarthy, if you look at the overall product of this year at Michigan, he knows how to win a big game, which to me was one of the few negatives about Drake May, which down the stretch at UNC, he didn't have the best final stretch. Looking at J.J. McCarthy, he lost one game at Michigan. He knows how to win the big game, and that's big. It's big because, if it's tough to really judge college sports to a certain degree because, I guess the only way I kind of judge pro sports, or not pro sports, but college sports, is that in basketball, I judge it off the NCAA tournament because those are the highlight games. Those are big-time games as opposed to college football. big games are important to me. I think that's really where you could judge these quarterbacks, because if you can win in the Ohio States and the Michigan States of NCAA football, that shows he can win under pressure. So going back to pro day, very impressed. I think every quarterback had their issues with overthrown balls. I mean, I'm kind of a stickler because it's like there's no defense, there's not much pressure. It's kind of a glorified, you just throwing the ball around really pretty much. But I get it, the jitters. You got guys who got your future in their hand pretty much critiquing you. So I totally get it, these young guys. But I really don't have any negatives. I mean, he had a really good pro day. I mean, like I said, his footwork, very few throws made off his back foot. Even with the slants, he gets the ball out quick. I mean, so look, it's going to be a tough decision for the GM for the Commanders, because you can look at him, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels, and I mean, I think any of the three could come in and be a successful franchise quarterback for this team. I mean, it's a hard decision. So obviously they all have their pluses and minuses. Jake can run. Drake has got that build to him. I mean, a Josh Allen build to him. But JJ McCarthy, he reminds me of another University of Michigan guy. And I hate to compare, but look, Tom Brady was a perfect system quarterback, man. He found the right system in New England. And look, Kurt Warner was a system quarterback where he found the right system with the Cardinals, and obviously with the greatest show on turf in St. Louis. But, when you look at him going to New York, he didn't have the right system, and it showed a lot of the deficiencies with Kurt Warner. So finding the right system, JJ McCarthy is going to be a great quarterback at the next level.
Yeah, I think honestly, J.J. McCarthy would be the pick that I would have if I'm trading down, and maybe not having to trade down too far. But if the Commanders were in the market to say, hey, we love J.J. McCarthy so much, we think he's going to fit in our system. We're not going to start him this year. We're going to start Marcus Mariota. And so we're willing to take J.J. McCarthy and start him when he's ready. So we're going to take him. Let's say we're dropping down to, 4, 5, 6, whatever. And so that we can get maybe a Joe Alt or somebody like that and still be able to get J.J. McCarthy. Possibly. I don't know. That could be a pipe dream right there. But I don't know if I would draft him at number 2. But it's possible he goes at number 3. I mean, I have no idea. Because, at the end of the season, right before the combine, a lot of people felt that Jaden Daniels was more of a, later in the first round talent. Like maybe he would be in the top 8, or the 5 to 10 pick maybe, but not all the way up to number 2. And then it's funny how the stock for these players rises and falls depending on pro days and combines and interviews and that sort of thing. So, but J.J. McCarthy was one that I'm not even sure if he was even valued in the first round. Obviously, I knew that like Penix and Nix and a lot of those guys. I was seeing editorials where they were talking about, yeah, those guys would be good in the second round maybe, and very good backups, but probably maybe occasional starters. So they really wasn't giving them a lot, but things have changed with a lot of these guys, and I think once you go through the combine, you go through pro days and that sort of thing, you really start to make a change as far as how you view these quarterbacks. The only thing that I will say about these pro days is that I think to really get a good foundation of what this quarterback can do, I would bring in some DBs to challenge those receivers and see how these quarterbacks, I mean, obviously they're going to have the one guy who's going to kind of pretend like he's rushing them, but but for them to be able to really, when they're rolling out, scrambling, and all this stuff, trying to make some of those contestant passes that they can really see who's open, or even so being able to get the ball to the receiver when he is covered. So to me, it's kind of like, well, the pro day, it's almost like a fake thing. I hate to say that, but it's just like, they can pass the ball. If they couldn't pass the ball, they would not have been successful in college. But how how do they do it when they have a contestant receiver there? They have a DB right there. So I guess that's the thing that I think would make it a little bit more authentic as far as really getting a chance to see what these quarterbacks, could do once they get into the NFL. So Michael Penix, he was another one that you checked out. I didn't really get to check out Penix, but you checked out his pro day. Do you think that Michael Penix could be someone who could be drafted in the first round, or would you say he's much more of a safer pick, maybe waiting until the second round?
I'm going to say a safer pick because, looking at his pro day, the intangibles are there. The athleticism's there. Looking at his 40 time, look, he's healthy. He's ready to roll. You definitely adds a running element to it. And even though he didn't really run too much at the University of Washington, but I think he's trying to show teams that he has the capability to have some wheels on him. So, but the thing with him being a southpaw, being a left-handed quarterback is that, obviously there's things you got to switch around and everything's got to be in place for him to be successful, more so than with a JJ McCarthy or a Drake May or a Jane Daniels or a Caleb Williams, because he's left-handed. Right tackle becomes the emphasis of the O-line as opposed to, the other blind side, left tackle. So you got to make sure your right tackle is, can definitely protect his blind side. There's a lot of intangibles, obviously, he's going to be rolling left. So, even still then, left tackle is still important because he's going to be rolling, left a lot more than right. But he's got the intangibles. He really does. It's just with him is different than the other quarterbacks because of the injury history. A lot of teams are going to be leery because of that. So I think that's the biggest issue with him is just his injury history and his age. Obviously, he's a little older than the other prospects. And, obviously, when you're looking at getting a franchise quarterback for the present or the future, you want a younger guy because you want a guy who's going to grow with the organization. So, those are a couple of factors. Do I think they're necessarily, make it break? Nah, I think that he's talented enough to where he could develop into a really good starting quarterback. But like I said, the biggest thing, and a lot of quarterback people are saying, is that with him being a lefty, you got to change the DNA of your offensive line and really to a certain degree your offense to fit his needs. And, a team's got to be willing to do that. And so I think that right now, first round, I mean, he might be a late round guy, like a late first round guy. Maybe there's a contender out there that wants to get their quarterback now and develop him and sit behind a legitimate starter, and we'll see. But I think you're probably looking at a second or third round just because of the injury history, the age, and him being a left-handed quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, some of certainly his highlights and things like that. I didn't really get to watch any of his games during college, but I mean, he's got some talent. And you talk about his age and things like that. I kind of, as a southpaw, I'm always like, man, I love these southpaws. Because there is a change. It's like the ball comes out differently. You have to protect the other side a lot more than the left tackle. Guys like Steve Young, for instance, he was a great southpaw. Michael Vick, guys like that. So I always loved southpaws, and I guess I'm a little partial to them, but I kind of agree. I think that Penix is probably safer. Draft him in the second, maybe even the third round. I think honestly, when people are looking at these quarterbacks, Caleb Williams, number one, toss up between Jaden Daniels and Drake May at number two. And then after that, probably JJ McCarthy and maybe Bo Nix. So, I mean, this just goes to show you how much talent that this draft has this year for quarterback. And speaking of talent, of course, right now, Washington, I feel like they're pretty much set on picking a quarterback at number two. I don't know. I feel like that there's more arguments at this point against trading down than it is to just stay put at number two and get a quarterback. And Adam Schefter is kind of interesting because Adam Schefter is coming out and he's saying that it feels like that there's more talk about the Washington Commanders picking Jaden Daniels at number 2, which to me all points to the fact that they'll wind up picking Drake May because there's so much smoke out there right now. For the first time, we have no idea what the Washington Commanders are going to do. I mean, they may fool us all and trade down. Whenever I say that, I could just about hear our viewers just screaming because nobody wants to trade down. They want that quarterback at number 2, and I get it. I definitely get it. But do you think there's any? You see the smoke. Do you think there's any fire to this? Do you think it's a done deal that the Washington Commanders are going to draft Jaden Daniels at number 2?
I don't think we're gonna know till they tell everybody what the pick is. Honestly, they kept it really, really hush hush. A lot of smoke and mirrors, and I think they kind of had the same opinion that we do, and a lot of people in the NFL community and the Washington Commanders fan base really knows that. JJ McCarthy, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels all could be starters here. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was JJ McCarthy, honestly, because the comparisons to Brock Purdy, being a system guy, being a guy, being very, very pro ready, I think gives him a leg up, in my opinion. But Jaden Daniels, obviously, looking at it, he's the second best quarterback in the draft just because he's dual threat, and really to me, and I'm sure that there's still some loyal RG3 people out there, but to me, honestly, I think he's a better quarterback prospect than he was. And look, RG3 was a heck of a prospect coming out of Baylor. Track star, he, coming off a Heisman Trophy, he was definitely the guy to go after. But what was always the biggest issue with RG3 was throwing from the pocket, being a consistent passer from the pocket as opposed to being a dual threat. Jaden Daniels shows he can make those throws, he can make those deep throws, he can make them with accuracy, he can put some power behind him. I think at number 2, all arrows are pointing towards Jaden Daniels. But if there's going to be a wild card, and like I said, Drake May, I think he's going to be a heck of an NFL quarterback. But I think that, he's going to have to sit a year because he has to be developed at least 1 year, sit behind a guy, and then go from there. Don't be surprised that J.J. McCarthy, they sneak him because there's a reason why Minnesota, they traded up. Teams want J.J. McCarthy, and we're talking about trading back to 6. I don't see him being there at 6. Everybody needs a quarterback in the top 5 outside of Arizona, and they're probably gonna go after Marvin Harrison Jr. or our neighbors, man. So they ain't worried about no quarterback. So I don't think JJ McCarthy, he's there at 6. So you can definitely see. And Drake May, I hate to say that, but if anybody slides, and I really hate to say this because I really do like Drake May, I see him sliding a little bit potentially. It's not sure because if I'm New England, you take that chance. If Washington goes Jaden Daniels, if I'm New England, I'm running to the podium after Drake May, because they have to get a quarterback in there. Because right now, I don't even think they have a quarterback. Mac Jones is now the backup in Jacksonville. So, Drake May, I think, could be very successful in New England, in my opinion. So, the same thing with JJ McCarthy. Because if you look at mock drafts, you see both. You see where New England's picking Drake May. You see sometimes they're picking JJ McCarthy. You see JJ McCarthy going to Minnesota. A few times you still see Drake May at number 2. There's a few you see JJ. It's just kind of a long answer to the question. I don't think we're gonna know till the commissioner formally says it. You know what I mean? Because there's so many smoke and mirrors, and that just tells you, there's adults in the room as far as the general manager's office. Because under Dan Snyder, everybody would have known who we're going after. It would have been no secret. Dan Snyder would have went out there and took about the dinner, and it would have been so crazy. And just they're doing a good job not only keeping us off balance because look, we need a little excitement in our lives. So but looking at the rival execs, they're trying to keep them off balance, and I like what they're trying to do. Like I said, finally we have adults in the building because they're doing a good job. You don't want everybody to know what you're trying to do. You want to keep other teams off balance, and that's the best way to strategize in the draft room. So now they're doing all the right things. But if I'm a betting man, which I do a little sports betting, which right now, by the way, they got FanDuel's got bets right now on who's at number 2, and Jaden Daniels is the favorite right now for the bettors. But if I'm a betting man, Jaden Daniels is going to be chosen at number 2. But do not be surprised if it's Drake May or JJ McCarthy, because you could very well see them being picked too.
Yeah, I think speaking of FanDuel, I think it was FanDuel that just came into North Carolina at the beginning of April. I think it was at the beginning of April. Might have been before that. So I don't normally bet on sports, but I will totally admit that they crossed my mind. I was like, what's the least amount that I can bet? Can I bet 50 cents? Because I'll have to borrow the 50 cents from somebody else. But yeah, I imagine they do have those bets out there right now. And honestly, I mean, that's not a sure bet at all, because we really don't know at this point. And I'll even say this. Last night I was sitting down in front of the TV and I was doing mock draft after mock draft. And one of the mock draft scenarios had Arizona trading with us up to number 2, and we went down to number 4, and we were still able to get our quarterback. And I picked up like all of these other draft picks. So I was able to get like Chop Robinson. I was able to get, I think, like 2 offensive tackles. And I'm like, oh, wow. I'm like, where in the world, I mean, would this even happen? And the thing was, they were trading up to number 2 to get a wide receiver, to get like Marvin Harrison Jr. And so I was kind of like, would that even happen? But I hope I actually saved that. I probably didn't, because I started over and over again so much. I was like, just trying to see, if they could change the scenarios with Jaden. And that was an interesting one. And I'm like, man, if this happened, we were still able to get like Jaden Daniels, and then we wound up getting like a great receiver, cornerback. Like, I wished I could have just sent this draft to Adam Peters and said, I did all your work for you. Go ahead and use this. But anyway, so folks, honestly, if you want to look toward this channel and to really feel like you have the pulse of knowing exactly who's going to get picked, we don't know either, and nobody does. And you can tell by the back and forth banter on social media concerning Drake May and Jaden Daniels. You have people in both camps that are fighting with each other, and you have people who have already said if Commanders draft Drake May, then they're going to be Drake May haters and all this stuff. And I just don't get it. I'm like, when it comes down to it, I don't care who's the name that's on the back of the jersey. If they take us to a Super Bowl and win it, he's my quarterback. So I'm going to support anybody that the Commanders decide to put in at quarterback, except for Marcus Mariota. So no, I'm just kidding. I mean, I will support him, but I know that he's on borrowed time regardless. So anyway, folks, that's pretty much it for this video. We're also going to be releasing some other videos talking about some of these positions that the Washington Commanders have for need, and we will look into the draft and see who we think would be the best player available at those positions. Now, that isn't to say that we're going to be able to draft those guys, but just take a look at the best player available and see who we think that Washington could maybe draft. And as well, we'll be talking about some more mock drafts. I also want to go back and revisit some of our recent drafts and maybe give an upgraded grade, and maybe go back and redo those drafts and see who I would have picked differently. So if that sounds really fun and interesting to you, then make sure you stick around, subscribe to this channel. We got a lot of great content. And with that said, Brandon and I, we will see you in the next one. Health of Washington Commanders.